caught up in wondering what the questions are going to be, what kind of questions you're going to ask. I'm like, let's just pretend that we're talking like we just met at your shop or something like that. So
Right.
that's the way we kind of treat
All
this.
good. You're a charming guy, so.
I am curious though how you got started with this business, and I'm sure it didn't start where you are now. So
No,
let's start.
I didn't dream as a child in upstate New York of, having the largest aftermarket place for restaurant and food service. That wasn't part of the program. But
Not many kids did, I don't think.
I basically went to college in DC, was interested in the political world. In college, I worked in the White House, which was a great experience. And then went to business school in New York, got into marketing at Kraft General Foods, and realized I wasn't a big fan of corporate America and wasn't a big fan of New York. And of course, it had nothing to do with the 18 family members of my wife's in Staten Island for me to want to leave New York. But it's been so long, everybody forgets about it. But so we moved to DC, and Washington wasn't the epicenter of marketing, brand management. I was in the Maxwell's brand. So it was in the early days of prepared foods in supermarkets. And I got hired by companies that were putting kiosks into supermarkets, soup bars for Campbell's, coffee kiosks for Maxwell House, salad bars. And the thing that took us national was self-serve frozen yogurt machines at the end of salad bars. And we would manage all the logistics. But every time we showed up, Kyle, the supermarket would ask us to get rid of whatever they were displacing. And at first I was like, I'm no junk guy. I'm no Sanford and Son here. I'm a marketing guy. And then they're like, hey, marketing guy, get rid of this papaya juicing machine. And I was like, okay, because I needed we were paid based on placements. So we started doing that, did well, brought in proceeds, and the rest is 38 years later.
So what did you, when you first got that first machine, what did you do with it?
So first of all, I didn't know how to get it out of the supermarket, right? So it was like, we're only going one way in there. And so we brought it to a little shop. We had a fix-it guy help clean us up. And then we put people on the phones, and we found some independent people wanting to buy those machines. And that's how we started our customer base. So
the old cold call.
The old cold call, pre-internet.
That's amazing. And what year was that?
That was in 1987.
I do remember. How long did those frozen yogurt machines last? Because for some reason,
there've been like 4 lives to them, right? So there've been like, there was the first life, and then it went to the crunchy granola set, and then it went to, and then manufacturers figured out how to get frozen yogurt in a freezer case, which was much easier than cleaning out a yogurt machine every day. So
those machines,
But it took us national, and then they started asking us, the customers, to help them liquidate other equipment that was in warehouses and back rooms. And you're a restaurant guy. It's, everybody's got stuff.
Yeah.
And we started generating returns for them on the same way when you place a tenant in a location. We started generating returns. We were performance based, and we grew it nationally to 36 warehouses around the country.
Wow.
And that became kind of chaotic. We needed one central place, and we ended up buying an old Army base in the Finger Lakes in 2000. 1,000 acres. What's that?
I didn't know you could buy them.
Well, this was one no one wanted, Kyle. So this was in rural America, right? So it was 15 minutes from where I grew up and said I would never move back to. These are famous last words. I will never back. So we moved everything up there right after 9/11. My partner's from Syracuse, and he never thought he'd move back. And since then, we've built that location out, and we have facilities in LA, Dallas, and Orlando, but we're national.
Wow. So how long did that take? I mean, how did you even get from where you were to even opening in other states? I mean, connections? Was it like a loose affiliation? How did that work?
Yeah. So as you know, the restaurant industry is quite fluid in terms of people moving between locations. Mm-hmm. And each time a client would move from one chain to another, from one geography to another, they'd have some kind of mop-up to have to deal with. And it's not just closures that we deal with, even though the most recent closures of Red Lobster and Rubio's and Tijuana Flats have given us a fair amount of visibility. it's the normal course of business. Equipment comes and goes.
Yep.
Entrepreneurial restaurants, want to buy in the aftermarket, but it's not the most ethical of sorts. And so we've taken a lot of pride in building the largest aftermarket of restaurant and food service
Mm.
equipment over the years.
So when somebody asks you to take some of this stuff out, what do you guys do? You clean it up? Do you service it? Like what does that process look like?
Sure. So in the normal course of business, I mean that about 30% of our business comes from closed locations. The other 70% is in the normal course of business. So down the road from you at Yale University, that's one of our clients, Wegmans, the
Hmm.
CIA in Hyde Park. We bring the equipment into our facility and we clean it up. We don't invest heavily on the mechanical side because we sell it, as is, where is. And, the market tells us what the value is. We're like the Kelley Blue Book. Instead of cars, we're of
Ah.
restaurant equipment. So
And business is good right now.
business has grown every year, and
Mm.
we've continued to double in the most recent years, largely due to our auction platform, which is restaurantequipment.bid, where every lot starts at $1.
Mm.
And we
Oh
have
wow.
auctions going there's 4 auctions closing today. 6, I'm sorry. 3 in California, 3 in the East Coast, and we take a lot of pride. We get as many as 1 million views a day on the sites,
Hmm.
and we can't get enough product. And so what happens sometimes is we've grown over the years, so people don't realize that we don't discriminate against size of project. So if somebody's got a storage location or a back room or is doing a remodel and they're displacing equipment, oftentimes they just turn it over to some local scrap guy. And that does nobody any good from an economic standpoint. And oftentimes the stuff ends up in a landfill. So we take a lot
Right.
of pride that everything is displaced from a landfill. But it's been incredibly, I think COVID was a game changer for a lot of reasons in industry, especially our industry, food industry. And I think it because of the delays in supply chain. So if somebody wanted a fryer, you may recall that they had like 12 to 15 months they'd have to wait. And
Yeah.
so somebody who initially was not open-minded to the aftermarket to used equipment is like, I need a fryer. You know,
Yeah.
and so they were much more, and then it opened their eyes to the aftermarket as not as, you know, Lower East Side Bowery days of used equipment, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, I imagine some of the equipment you get back is in good shape because the restaurant didn't make it. They weren't using it. They weren't using it
Right.
as much. So I know that during COVID, the thought was like, wow, like you're not going to be able to, you know, get rid of this equipment. There's going to be so much because all these restaurants are closing. Did that ever happen?
So it's interesting. It was a total polar opposite. So
Hmm.
the new equipment market in the US is a
Yep.
$14 billion category B.
Wow.
No one tracks the aftermarket. We're the largest in the aftermarket. We don't come close to $14 billion of revenue.
Right.
So there's a constant supply and demand. There's always places remodeling, closing, etc.
Yep.
But then on the other side of that, there's the entrepreneurial guys. Think about all the great restaurants that you opened up in New York. When you wanted a salamander, do you care if it's dented or dinged? No, as long as
Hmm.
it's functional and it's there. So, that's part of it. Did I lose you there?
No,
Okay,
I'm here.
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was interesting because I remember, that's always a conversation. And these guys, like, I'm thinking right now about a group that I'm showing a space to where the guy's asking key money and the equipment's not in great shape, and how do they value it? And I could just rip this out, give it to him, he could take it, that kind of vibe. Um, how does somebody, like, let's say you're going to look at it at a restaurant and you're looking at the equipment? Is there something that you can look at, just like eyeball, serial number, like depending on the piece of equipment, obviously, but is there something that they could look at and see, like, okay, this is obviously in good shape, worth keeping, or is it all just kind of got to check it out and see if it works?
Yeah, I mean, we try to never. Obviously, the chef and the owner are the ones, the arbiters of what works, what doesn't work for their concept. I
Yeah.
think that from our standpoint, everything has value in the aftermarket. Every one of
Mhm.
our auctions, and we've been doing this since the early 2000s, every lot starts at $1, whether it's a mixer, a RoboCoupe, or a convection oven, doesn't really matter. And
Hmm.
we let the market tell us what it's worth. On the what do you keep side, when somebody walks into a location, they have to get rid of equipment. That's how we can be very helpful to people, because the equipment, they need it out because it doesn't fit their concept, and we can generate a return on it. So anybody walking into space, they should be judicious as to what they, keep and what they let go of.
So you never owned a restaurant. You never decided to go on that. You've strictly been on the equipment side.
No, I have not owned a restaurant. I started my career as a
Smart guy.
dishwasher. Yeah.
That was enough. Like I seen enough.
I'm a dishwasher, and I got fired. It was on Mother's Day because we were throwing away silver. And I didn't know. I was 16 years old. I just wanted to get the hell out of there, right?
Yeah.
And so when I knocked the scraps off the thing, I stole some pieces of silverware from a famous inn in upstate New York. Didn't make it, and so I had to recover. But then he hired us right back, the couple of guys in my neighborhood that were working, because it was Mother's Day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I never thought. But I've always loved the restaurant business, like you. It's a rush, the food service industry, and now with the blurring of sectors, now C-stores, supermarkets, they all have prepared foods. That's causing a lot of chaos in the industry, I'm sure you're seeing. And it's just, this is the beauty of this industry is it's constantly changing. It's like all about change. And I don't have the best attention span. I have a partner who's very focused, right? And so by the same token, we focus in on helping people with change. And so whether they're taking over a place, getting rid of a place, whatever, it's all part of it. So.
Yeah. I mean, so you're the reason why they invented those magnetic things inside the trash cans to catch the utensils. Yeah, I remember that whole thing. So let's talk about Red Lobster. I think our last episode we touched on what kind of
I listened to it.
Went down there. Are they all closing? Like what's going on here? What do you think's the futures of these guys?
And you guys did a great, deep dive into the Red Lobster situation, and there's been so much written about it. It's who am I to deal with it? So the people brought in to figure it out are from Alvarez and Marcel. They're workout specialists. They're incredibly sharp, top team on that. And bankruptcy, I guess, was the only path that they thought was best to try to salvage a brand that's, what I found after they closed them all was an American icon. Oh, the 108 closed. So there were 700 plus in total. 108 closed. And we sold on auction on our site 48 locations in 3 days. It was a winner take. And then the rest of the contents we brought back to our warehouses around the country. And I don't know what the next steps are. I know that, as you guys acknowledge, there's been a lot of interesting dynamics on the sale leaseback stage. And then when the current owner vertically integrated the supply of shrimp and everything else, it's crazy. But the stories the passion for the brand, we were in so much press because they were not able to say anything about, obviously was in a pending bankruptcy. So everybody came to us because we were auctioning off the contents of 50 of the locations. And but the thing that made us most famous was John Oliver bought one of the locations. And he bought one and set up a little Red Lobster in his studio just selling biscuits. So that's the thing that was just, chaotic. Where they go from here, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about other closures and who knows, but it's got a pretty dedicated customer base.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and I think it's also, if they all closed today, that's a hell of a run for a restaurant brand, right? I mean, I think they've kind of outlasted the QSR dynamic, and they've, still have they're still doing great top line revenue. I just am thinking that they're just a victim of time, right? Like, to be around 27, 28 years, that's that many units.
I think the interesting thing is that very few people have done well in this, call it seafood space, right?
Right. Yeah.
Remember Arthur Treacher's in New York? You used to see those around, and Long John Silver's and Captain D's. They're always kind of fried and out there. But it's a tire brand. I think the brand obviously has value, and the customer base is pretty dedicated. Now, I haven't had those biscuits yet because I've never had it, but I bought my wife a couple boxes for her to make them for me, and she said, "Really, you want me to make these for you? As
Yes.
if you don't eat enough, So
I mean, that's funny because that's been like the biggest backlash online is like, where am I going to get the biscuits from now?
it's
So,
unbelievable. It's
yeah, I mean,
unbelievable.
I think the timing of it for them, if somebody's going to hold on to the brand name, if they did their frozen stuff CPG, they opened up a ghost kitchen where they just sold biscuits and soup, the Luke's Lobster competitor type of deal. I think there's a avenue for that, multiple avenues for them to do some of that stuff. So maybe this, in the long run, will have been a super smart move.
Yeah, I mean, after a bunch of vendors and everybody else,
Yeah,
takes it on the chin,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. That's fair.
the interesting thing though that the opportunity is, people always ask, well, what happens to all this stuff that you sell? Because
Yeah,
this past week we closed 60 Rubios in California, which was a fresh fit, ironically also in seafood,
yeah.
which was a fresh fish taco. I don't know if you had the pleasure of having it. Great product.
Everybody loved them. I know it was.
Yeah.
It was kind of a bit of a shock, that closure, to a lot of
Yeah.
people.
And so what happens to all the equipment? So what happens to all the equipment is either some entrepreneurial person wants to, cherry pick to put in their independent restaurant, which
Yes.
lowers the cost of equipment for them.
Hmm.
And, I think that the real estate market ultimately, there's more trouble in the office segment of the real estate market than there is in the restaurant retail side of the real estate market.
I think the challenge for their real estate is that it's a big rest. Those are fairly big. Like I think they're 4,000, 5,000 square feet. Those are like 2, 3 restaurants you can make out of
Right.
those. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of those spaces. But
Well,
um,
I think you talked about it on your prior show. That what do you turn it into? Two, you know, fast casual concepts, which
yeah,
certainly makes. I mean, the infrastructure's there, right? So the walk-in box, the hoods, the remote refrigeration, it's all there. So
yeah,
the question is, what do you do with it now? So
yeah. I mean, demising them is probably a move. Can you turn half side into a drive through? Who knows? I think that there's such the market for retail real estate and restaurants in particular is so tight right now. I think landlords will consider anything, as long as it makes sense for
why
them,
do
for
you
the whole
think
tenant.
that is? Why? It's interesting is I've been through cities these last 3-4 months. And I walked in DC and Los Angeles, all these other places that used to have incredibly vibrant retail.
Mm,
And now you go blocks and blocks with signs and everything else. But yet at the same time, people are hungry for the restaurant space, right?
yeah. I think the internet is eating a lot of retail. Those don't have some sort of like. I mean, I hate the phrase; it's such a catchphrase, but like omni-channel presence. Some of these stores, you can buy online, pick it up in the store, try it on, return it, that type of deal. The ones that offer an experience will be there. I think the traditional retail that we kind of grew up with is in trouble. They're gonna have to adapt in some way. But the restaurant stuff, I think it is increased competition, tons and tons of new concepts, all the time. And I think due to COVID and the expenses related to build out and construction, there aren't as many new developments as there would have been. So there's not a lot of supply in the market. And then the reason why a lot of restaurants can't pull the trigger or are taking longer than they'd like to find a suitable site is that this lack of inventory has put tremendous pressure on the rents, and that rents are staying up. So they're not. The move used to be like, oh, city's not working out for you. Let's go check out the suburbs. But now suburban rents are 60, 70, 80, 100, $120 a square foot here in Metro New York.
It's
So
crazy. It's
yeah, they're
crazy.
competing
So what
with.
happens to given your unique perspective, because you were both an operator and a real estate guy,
Hmm,
what happens to the casual dining sector, right? Everybody tried to splinter themselves off to be fast casual, right? And we do
yeah,
we do work for great brands like, Chipotle and Panda and those guys. But what happens to the old school casual dining chains? I mean, I don't know. Because the independent operator, the we live in, Rochester, New York, and there's great chefs who've traveled the world who can't afford to open restaurants in New York or Los Angeles, and they come back to the B and C cities, and say, well, I can, open a great restaurant there for much less dollars. They're not
Oh
going to.
yeah.
And so then that kills the casual dining guy. If you can go to a quality independent run by a chef like you ran an operation in smaller town America.
Yeah. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for those restaurants, the independent restaurants, the 1 to 5 unit operators, because they still have while all those other chains are probably going to be forced into automating the hell out of the experience or changing it just because they have stakeholders and they're publicly traded companies, or they just have more at risk and more pressure on their bottom line. The independents can still make themselves, you know, profitable, make themselves like established in their community by providing outstanding experience, outstanding hospitality, and delivering consistently. And I think those brands that do that, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for them moving forward, because we're all going to be, once all the kiosks are in place and all the places have nobody to greet you at the register,
Right.
it's gonna be like that COVID feeling. We're gonna crave that connection with the bartender and the server and the
Oh, no
maitre d' that
question.
knows what we want. So I think focusing on experience, and not, I also think another thing that all these guys are doing is trying to, you know, race to the bottom with this now, like the cheapest meal that you can buy.
Right. And the
So,
commodities and labor, I mean, the Rubio's group, their
mhm.
attribution of closure was based on the minimum wage, which
Yeah,
is anytime you try to intercede in the marketplace for commodities or labor, you screw things up. So this is a casualty of that situation.
yeah. I mean, that's like I don't even know if it's conspiracy theory, but like the only way that the McDonald's of the world can survive, most likely, with the lack of kids that age who want to work in this business, is automation. Like the McDonald's over here has nobody. The one in Manhattan
Really?
has nobody. Like you just walk in and there's your bag and you don't see anybody. And that makes sense, but they don't want to be the bad
You
guy.
don't order, wait, so you order on an automated basis, and how do you get your
Yeah,
product?
you order online or you order at the kiosk, and then it just shows up like, like a little locker, or maybe
Really?
somebody might come out and hand it to you, put like, hey, number 13 is here, but that's it. There's no
Wow.
interaction. The straws, the ketchup, everything's over here. So I get it. There's not enough people to work, and there's, tremendous pressure on the ones who are going to work in terms of the wages, but people are not going to want to deal with that all the time, I don't think.
Agreed. Agreed.
So you've seen, what was the other one? Tijuana Flats, you said, is closing. You're handling that. A lot of those units have,
Tijuana
have closed.
Flats, Rubio's, and Red Lobster, about 200 locations in the last 30 days.
So who's next, do you think?
Yeah.
Who's next on the
So,
chopping block?
well, I mean, you could go down the list of challenged casual dining locations. Although Tijuana Flats and Rubio's, I wouldn't call them casual dining, right? Sit down
Mm,
locations. They were more fast casual or what have you. I think a lot. I was talking to a banker yesterday who'd be a good guy for you to have on. He's originally from New York, and he
mm,
um, he was saying that there's not a lot of good deals out there to lend money against, or a lot of M&A deals. People with interest rates as they are, with no sign of reduction, are concerned about, with the increased cost of commodities, the increased cost of labor, all those other things, is that, there's a challenge out there as to who to lend money to. And when
mm,
bankers are saying, hey, there's nobody requesting it because they know they're not going to hit the threshold of where we need to be financially,
mm.
I think that all there are no sacred cows anymore. I
Right.
think that the whole disruption now is not just sector, subsector focused. It's not just casual dining, or in this case with Tijuana Flats and Rubio's fast casual. I think it's everybody. I think even the QSR people are very challenged.
Oh, yeah.
Um, you know, there, there's a lot of disruption, but to your point, a good, solid, independent operator can do very well, as long as they don't
Yeah.
try to get too big too soon, right? And they
Oh,
continue to serve their customer base.
I mean,
And
that's a whole
people
other
want that.
story.
It's like Cheers, right? The show Cheers. Everybody wants to have a place where they feel comfortable, where they can, at the end of a day or the end of a week, get a drink, know the bartender, know the staff, and make
Yeah.
that happen. When you automate things, to your point, that's a great analogy. It's just like COVID. You need the personal connection.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of people, most are obviously we have facilities, we have warehouses, but at our headquarters here in Rochester, everybody has to be here every day, except for a couple of groups come in 3 days a week. But you can't operate remotely. You
No.
have to, people want connection. They want to be with other people.
Yeah.
So I think the more automated you get, that's why there's a lot of QSR people looking for drive-through only.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Wendy's operator in the Midwest who told me he wasn't going to restaff post-COVID. He was going to keep his Wendy's at 3 people on any given shift, the total of it, drive-through, a manager and a cook, just kind
Yeah.
of managing it all. And he didn't even open the seats back up in a bunch of these and that was in rural
Yeah.
locations.
Right.
And so, it's kind of amazing. So,
I mean, I did like a video tour of Cloud Kitchen space
uh-huh.
in Sunnyside, Queens, and I knew what they were, but I just couldn't believe how they crank out of those little places. 400 square feet. They get a little iPad. The robot comes, picks it up, brings it downstairs. There's 25 dudes on mopeds waiting to take it out. And, there was Jersey Mike's in there. There was a Starbucks in there. There was a lot of other nationals in there. There's an ice cream concept in there. There was, breakfast. There was tacos, everything. And I was like, that's the way to make it work, right? Like, because
It is,
this,
but you need a high concentration. The big wave before these most recent closures were a bunch of, call it ghost kitchens that were not cloud
yes,
kitchens that were not well executed, shall we say.
yes. And
And
well,
so,
I think that's the big problem is that they're not, they don't realize how important it is to have a digital presence, because when your whole presence, your whole experience is this, you got to come with it, because the big guys of the world they're gonna
right,
outprice you, to outrank on those, or outspend you to get higher up on
right.
those things. So you got to do something.
We closed a couple of hubs last week in Chicago and Miami. Everybody thinks it's easy,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh,
They
it's
think,
yeah,
how could it be complicated? It's food, and they spent billions of dollars in these categories, on the business. So it's,
so, so where do you see the opportunity for like restaurants right now? Like
I think that I think that there's a couple things that they have to be conscious of. I think the what I call sector blur, like the blurring of sectors between C-stores, supermarkets, restaurants. When we were kids, it was you'd go to a gas station to get gas. Now you can get a complete meal at a
oh
C-store, right?
yeah, yep,
So those people entrepreneurially, what we're seeing out there is that there's a lot of independent entrepreneurs who are using other people's environments for their food, right? So
mm-hmm.
some independent is saying to a C-store, hey, you don't want to do this yourself. We'll come in and do it for you and give you a percentage, like, a percentage rent of a strip center or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the blurring of the sectors is key. People that take their brands or try to offer things, prepared foods to the retail environment, supermarket or otherwise. And then I think that, like we were talking about before, I think a strong independent, Kyle, can really do well as long as they stay in their lane. And what
Yeah,
happens with a lot of these independents is they develop success and some other business guy comes in and says, look, I'm opening a food hall. Do you want to put one of your restaurants or bars in the food hall? And it's appealing. It's complimentary. I
oh
can't
yeah,
tell you all the time I've chased a bunch of rainbows because people have said, hey, you did such a good job on remodeling or, equipment liquidation. Can you help me with X?
yeah,
Medical equipment, so far afield from our food focus. Same thing with this. I think a lot of people should be more focused in on what their true superpower is. And
yeah.
for a chef and an entrepreneur, it's creating that special place. And I think that that's that will fill the technological coldness of what you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about. That you go into the McDonald's, you don't even. I mean, I remember my small town I grew up in. It was a big deal when I got a McDonald's, but there was somebody there to greet you and
Oh
make
yeah,
it special for you. And then I think that not just the technology, but also the chain business. Um, I don't know how many chains can grow and build a cadre of people that can create that environment in a chain.
Right. And especially when nobody wants to, you're not getting this, it was always kind of difficult to find somebody, but now, these kids just can make more money doing something else,
Right.
that's not as challenging. And I think, it makes sense to a certain degree. Let them go do something else. So there may be a
Right.
career for them in hospitality, not washing
Right.
dishes or, mopping the floor. So, yeah, I think the brands that can get it, whatever that means for their, and still have their concept resonate, there's definitely, we've seen brands go through that before. I think
Oh, absolutely.
that's it. That's going to be interesting to watch. Cause
It's interesting. I began my career in the Maxwell House division of, at the time it was Kraft, and the guy who was in charge, this is pre-Starbucks, said that the whole mission was to enhance manufacturing, to develop a 2-pound can for under $3 of coffee. When you think about that, so it was an entire can of coffee for under $3. That was the goal. And then I think about, when I took my Depression era father, who's no longer with us, to Starbucks, and I bought him a coffee, and he was like, that came like whatever it was, the two of us was like $6. And he goes, no, 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 we just got the coffee. He kept challenging the woman at the thing. She said, yeah, it was like $3 a piece. And it was, it
oh
was just such a telltale sign of that situation. So things change, right? Things
yeah,
can become cool again. So,
yeah, I agree. I think I could probably, if I sat down for 5 minutes and just thought a little bit more about this, I could probably make a very strong case that there's never been more opportunity for somebody looking to open up a restaurant. What that means for their definition of a restaurant might be different than what's traditional, but I think there's still a hefty opportunity. We're
and
going to see
and the
people like that.
enthusiasm for the food business, the Food Network and the Cooking
Oh yeah,
Channel, and all these guys are like rock stars now.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, and the opportunity for them strictly on the like content side,
Yeah.
promoting brands, using brands. So,
Well, a lot
um,
of them don't even operate their own brands anymore, right? They license their names. So Bobby
oh
Flay, I
yeah,
don't even think that they
he's
own a.
franchising now.
Yeah, it's all franchising Bobby's Burgers, and they do a good job with that.
Yeah,
But I don't think that they have their, they have oversight over the food and the staff and the process, but I don't think that you know,
you're not gonna see
they're
Bobby
asset
there.
light, as they say, Kyle.
Yeah, it's like the old school Mesa Grill where you'd see Bobby Flay behind there, expediting or something. It's not gonna see him
Right,
back in that. Yeah.
right.
So, well, look, I appreciate you being on. What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you if they're looking to buy some
Sure,
equipment or get rid of some equipment?
sure. So our webs, I mean, I'm available, Neal Sherman, NEALSHERMAN. It's nsherman at tagexbrands.com,
Mm-hmm.
TAGEX, and the word brands.com. Our website is tagexbrands.com, and our marketplace is restaurantequipment.bid, BID. And so we have auctions going all the time, and anybody can email me. We have, as many as 1 million views a day and 50,000 registrants, but we take
Wow.
care of each customer one at a time. We've taken a lot of pride in that. We don't just deal, with big chains. We deal with people that are sitting on a storage facility of equipment or whatever be the case. So, and we take a lot of pride in that. But I appreciate, thank you so much for the opportunity. I think
Yeah.
you're providing a great service for, the
Oh, thank you.
restaurant industry, not just based on one dimension. It's multiple dimensions, food, real estate, everything
Yeah.
else. And we're
I
niche
just
players, but we can help people. But you're doing a great service with this. So,
oh, thank you. I mean, I just want to talk to people here who can add value because, as you know, one little decision can make your business go away, as we've seen
right,
with a couple of these guys we spoke about.
right.
And shout out to Sarah. Sarah, I'm
Sarah
so sorry,
Malcolm,
Sarah Malcolm.
Quiet Valor.
Yeah, she's Sarah Malcolm, Quiet Valor. She has been such a proponent of me creating this kind of content. She's a little bit pissed at me now because I owe her a little piece of content. I was supposed to send her, so sorry, Sarah, if you hear this. But she
I don't
kind
know
of
that she
connected us.
stays
So,
pissed. She's got 3 young boys. She's too tired sometimes, to
oh
be
my
pissed.
god,
It's not her demeanor to be angry. So,
no, she can't be.
right.
But yeah, she's the best. Thank you, Sarah. All right, yeah, I look forward to
Thanks,
staying in
Kyle.
touch. I'm sure I'll
I
see you. You have a
appreciate it,
great
man.
LinkedIn. I'm gonna link your LinkedIn at the bottom of the page along with your brands. So
Great.
yeah, looking forward to staying
Thanks
connected.
so much.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Take care. All right. So you